says it's live on Facebook. Okay. So hi.
Hi, beautiful.
Hey, it's so good to have you on the live. We have so many one-on-one phone calls. Fortunately, I feel so grateful for that. And now we're going live together. That's really exciting.
Like you and I have such amazing sort of interaction and energy that I love that we get to kind of share some of that with other people because we're kind of coming from different vantage points, and I think together we make like a really beautiful kind of soupy mix
Yeah.
or juicy mix. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I like soupy, especially because it's getting colder. I've been eating lots of soups. Just
Me
to,
too.
yeah, it feels so nourishing on so many levels. Like a hearty soup is hot. It feels like a warm bath for my insides.
Definitely comfort food, especially this week. That was one of the things I chose as my self care for this week.
Nice soup,
Mhm.
a really
Soup.
good soup. Yeah, nice. So before we start talking about reclaiming or claiming our sovereignty, I want us to share a little bit about what we're working on in the background.
Um, what I'm doing, and I know you know this, but I am rebuilding my website and
Mm-hmm.
I'm including a membership portion so that I'm able to have different groups and different tiers in order to share. I've got this amazing tool bag and information and access to ancient esoteric wisdom practices.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to share that. And I want to do it in a community way that's not social media based.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on creating all of that kind of behind the scenes, with a launch time of sometime in February. I haven't landed on the date. I kind of think I know what that date is, but that's what's going to happen.
Exciting. I've been thinking about doing the same, getting off of social media, and actually, I've been looking at Patreon. I'm not committed to it yet, but it felt like a really good fit for the content stream that I plan on putting out there. So I'd love to talk to you more about that later. That sounds really exciting. So February is when it's feeling like it's going to launch. That's great. And are you taking enrollment for it now? Or are you doing
Um,
anything early bird vibes or?
Not just yet. I want to
Okay.
get a little farther in getting all of the things in place. But
Mhm.
I'm gonna start promoting probably before too much longer, just to kind of give people a feel for what's going to be included. So some of that will include ritual and astrology on an ongoing
Mm.
basis.
Mm.
Um, and then I've also got all these courses that I've created, and that I'm adding more content into, including a whole course on sovereignty. So
Mm.
I'll be offering those in like a different tier level. And if there are people that want to do like all of my offerings,
Yeah.
then they can have access to those at a better pricing than saying like a la carte menu.
Right. That's really exciting. That's really exciting. I mean, I look forward to learning more about it myself. I love when you do readings for me and you give me all the astrological downloads. So I can't
Those are
wait.
my survival tools in this time that we live in. Like, it's a great lens to have so that when something happens, you can be like, oh, okay. And it helps you navigate.
Yeah, totally. I've been writing on Medium a lot more. So I haven't even finished that course, but I started that course on writing for Medium, and it really helped me a lot kind of grasp. So I've been practicing. I need to kind of continue. I'll be doing that a lot this weekend. And I'm also putting something together to actually start in January. So I've committed to a mid-January. Is it a new moon? Can't remember if it's a new moon or a full moon. Do you know? Mid-January. I think
I
around the
am
12th
looking
or
that up for you right now, just so that we know for sure what that is, because it's good to know. And I'm a huge believer in starting something on a new moon, of course.
yeah.
That's the
Oh,
natural time frame. Yeah, the new moon is the 13th. So
yeah. Okay. Okay, good. All right. I was trying to choose it around, I think around the new moon. Yeah. Great. So yeah, and I'm offering something special, I guess, to the people who watch this video, and also for the month of November, which I'll announce later, towards the end. But I want to talk to you about. First, I want to start by asking, going back to astrology and oracle readings and stuff. You mentioned how those are like really important tools for you, especially during these times. Since we're talking about sovereignty in particular, I'd love to know how, how these things play into the concept of sovereignty for you.
To me, they are tools to further claim and understand what sovereignty is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, it's like having a language and a lens for understanding and making meaning of the things that happen in life. Um, and also sort of like a navigational tool for how to confront those things and work through them.
Okay, nice. So the way that I always see, like specifically Oracle, right? Because I have a few Oracle decks and I have a tarot deck as well. I just got a really pretty one I want to share with you. I think you'll appreciate it. I see them as divination tools, more or less. So the way that I work with them is that is by honoring them as a sort of a medium between myself and spirit, as a messenger, basically. Both of the subconscious and also of my higher self, right? They're coming together to show me sort of where I'm at. I do a lot of the readings around past, present, future, or you showed me something really interesting a few weeks ago, where it was like where you're at, where you're going, and tools and guides and challenges along the way. That was so great. And I've been trying to kind of mimic it a little bit with my new deck. Maybe, maybe, that felt like a really good reading for yeah, just like feeling grounded and anchored in where I'm at as an individual, as opposed to paying attention to what everyone else is saying and doing and how everyone else is trying to manipulate, the collective field. Really just using these tools to bring us into where we're at as individuals, in our own sovereign integral bodies, right? So mind, body, and soul.
I I use especially the Oracle and tarot cards too in a similar way. And the way that I like that it works for me, or why I like it so much, is because I'm a very deeply feeling person,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like all this stuff going on inside of me. And
Mm-hmm.
so my mind freaks out and wants to overanalyze and run down the road like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Um, and of course the mind wants to do that. That's its job. So
Mm-hmm.
the cards are a beautiful tool that have like the visual aspect and the intuitive aspect, and words and symbols, so that I can bring what's in my body up
Mm.
here and then have it make sense, so my mind can be like, oh, okay. um, because otherwise my mind's going to run off and it's going to spin and it's going to whirl and it's going to try to understand all the meanings. And so it's kind of like a bridge between those two.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. Now, it's interesting that you're talking about the bridge between the emotional body and like our comprehension, right? Our ability to comprehend what's going on. A lot of that has to do with the intuition, right? And a clear channel, a clear intuitive channel running through us. And having worked on our intuitive wisdom as well, like the maturation and the time we spend on cultivating our intuition really really governs, I think, whether or not we have that strong connection between the emotional body and the intellectual comprehension of what's going on. And I think that in going back to sovereignty, one of the reasons that I started my path to sovereignty kind of started more so with the liberation practices around yoga, right? So I've been practicing yoga for over a decade and became a teacher, and Tantra was my first path of study, which is generally not the case for people. What I find is that people, that kind of comes later on, right? And of course, I practiced a lot of it. I practiced a lot of yoga before I went to India to study Tantra, which really helped me actually even get to India in the first place. The way I realized I needed to go there was a full-on like soul calling, where I, sold all my belongings in LA during after a meditation, where I had a vision that I had to go to India, right? You can't have these things if you don't work on these things, right? Like the cultivation is where it's at. And that those signals and those sort of those impulses, I guess. For me, it felt like an impulse. It felt like must go, or maybe a compulsion, right? Like there was something in me that was like, you have to do this. And those are, those are so anyways, I was talking about yoga because that was the way through which I began to cultivate this. And I think, keeping a clear body in a clear field really helps us hear and see and know what's next for us, right? But with all of this stuff that's going on in the world, with the presidential election, with COVID, we're overwhelmed. I mean, on top of that, some of us are trying to keep our businesses together, trying to manage families with children who are homeschooling basically now, or like taking virtual classes from home. So like the stress levels have really amplified for a lot of people, which means it's so much harder to hear those voices, like to get that intuitive download and that connection that we need. And I think tarot is a wonderful way of and oracle cards, these are wonderful ways of assisting, especially in those times, right? Like you said, these are really powerful tools, and especially for these times, because they are our assistants. They're our little guides.
So, in this time of election, in this time of COVID, and you mentioned like there's so much going on, and it's all very different than it has been for all of us. Like we've all come up in a very different society, in a very different world. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the gifts of COVID, and for every calamity, every crisis, there is opportunity. There are gifts if you look for them and if you tap in. The quietness of being more inward, being at home, closing in your circles, mm-hmm. and like germ bubble or whatever, all of those things. It's more inward. So we're going inward. We're spending more time in that space. We're spending more time in a kind of a quiet space, a bit more shut off from some things. And to me, there's a gift in that, because there's a lot more discernment. There's an ability to sort of not hear quite as much noise, not be as energetically affected by, whatever company you're keeping or circles you're in.
Or media you're absorbing, or
you have to have that discernment traffic. For yourself. Yeah. Certainly, we're probably spending way more time online than we were, but I think when you meditate and when you spend more time going inward and centering, then your sovereignty, your sense of self, your sovereignty, and what you will and won't allow, we've had to really exercise boundaries. That I think in a way that's kind of coming more online. And then when we look at the political sphere, like I'm just gonna say the F word is so fucked up. It just is. And the kind of leadership that these people are presenting to us is not the kind of leadership that we want, need, or desire.
No.
So we have to do that for ourselves. And the more that we as individuals come online with our own internal leadership, and a friend of mine said this phrase the other day, I was like, it's perfect. Service leadership. The more we come online with that, the more we're able to call in those kinds of leaders, that kind of leadership, and the more we're going to be able to recognize who those folks are and get them into office, get them doing
Mhm.
what we also need.
Mhm.
But it has to start with the self.
Right.
I'm not giving away my power to some other person outside of me, and certainly not these government people that I don't trust at
Mhm.
all, and they're not in their
Mhm.
integrity and so on. So I've got to take my own authority, my own leadership
Mhm.
first, and then
Mhm.
move from there, make my decisions from there. Like, that's where it starts. It starts right here.
Yeah, 100%. Just looking at my notes, you're basically saying everything that I have written down over
Of course.
here. I'm like, um, um, one of the most powerful shifts I had around sovereignty was in talking to a dear friend of mine who's done a lot of shamanic work in South America. And when I say a lot, he basically became a hermit in the mountains of Colombia for years. Um, and I remember we were having a long chat. Um, and one of the things he said, which really touched me, is like, who did you give your power away to? And why? How did they get permission? How did they get permission? And I was like, you know what? That just touched that for me. That was like the epitome of that's the starting point of sovereignty, is taking back the power and saying, I do not consent to this. I do not consent. This is not the kind of leadership I will consent to. This is not the kind of authority that I need. This is not the kind of authority that my family needs, that my people need, that anybody needs. I do not consent to this. And on a more personal level, what they tell us about our bodies, how they should look, how we should feel, like in intimacy, or you're talking about being with yourself and being more in tune with yourself. A lot of people are so busy being out there and in tune with everything else that's going on, and unfortunately, so open to manipulation by these systems that we're talking about, that they don't know what they need, what they want in relationship with another also. They're told what they think they should want and what they should need. We are told, we all have been there, right? So when I say they and them, I'm talking about just in general, but I'm speaking from a place of experience as well. We're told what things should look like and how they should be and how they should go, without ever doing that deeper inquiry work with ourselves, that I feel and through my experience know happens best in when you give yourself the time and space to do it, right? And that requires creating sacred space, or just quiet time on your own, away from all media, away from other influences, and just diving deep into all of those things that, yeah, I mean, will bring up a lot of emotions, right? Like you were talking about earlier, how you you'll have emotions and your analytical mind will take over and be like, why, what? And of course that happens, and that should happen. That's wonderful. This is a nurturing response, right? Like the goal here is to figure out what's underneath that, so that we can turn it into a treasure instead of allow it to continue paining us, right? And harming us. Um, that self-inquiry is so important. Um, it's such an important step and such an important process to achieving and maintaining sovereignty. And it can only happen when we take back our power and say, no, I don't consent to this. I do not permit to this manipulation or influence. And then we begin to discover who we really are, because we bring our power back, bring our vital life force back to our bodies, and nurture ourselves with that exact force that's been externalized, that's been taken from a very young age, for most of us. And then things begin to clear up and make a lot more sense, I think.
What you're talking to is what I think of as, like we're indoctrinated from, coming up in school, and we're sold the great American dream. And then the great American dream is that we've been into these safe little boxes
Mm-hmm.
where we're good little consumer units
Mm-hmm.
that are enslaved financially and otherwise, right? We become enslaved because we're supposed to keep going into debt to have the next bigger, better, whatever. And we're supposed to get married and have kids and a family so that we can raise more good little consumer units so that we can feed into the system.
Right.
um, and when we realize, like, when we start to break out of that mold, those boxes, and we go, oh, there's like so much more out here to life,
Mm-hmm.
that I think is a really stark turning point in somebody's life when they start to question these things and they start to realize, I don't have to do this, or I don't have
Right.
to do it this way. There's so many possibilities out there, and we're not, we're it's not necessarily always applauded or celebrated when people decide that they're not going to do like the straight narrow path of,
Mm-hmm.
you know get your
Mm-hmm.
education, get your job, get
This is where
married.
the term black sheep comes from, I think, also. Like the people who
Yeah,
that
no.
it looks as, like the strange one over there who did everything different from everyone else. I was totally that person
Yeah, oh
in my
yes.
family. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So and yeah, I've never personally been one to totally follow all the rules and do the things. Um and I'm not like out breaking the law either, because I believe that love is the law, and you, as long as you're not doing any harm to yourself and others, like do what, do what you will. Um so that, to me, that's part of sovereignty. But as you were talking, I realized one of the key pieces for me with all of that was to stop watching TV like
Mm-hmm.
17 years ago. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
unplug it, no cable, satellite, like whatever, just stop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was huge because there's less of that sort of indoctrination. Like those people that have those things on 24/7 or in the background, whatever they're doing, like
Mm-hmm.
I can't even stand it. I can't be in a space where that's happening.
No, I was watching the vice presidential debate a couple of weeks ago. I don't watch TV. I haven't owned one in, again, like a decade probably. Around the time I started practicing yoga was when I was like, don't need this anymore. This is a silly box that fills my mind with junk, and I don't want all this junk. I want to know what's in there, what's constructive, what's healthy, what's going to keep me vibrant and alive and in my power, and have a zest for life, not just be fed a bunch of crap. But I was watching this. I recently moved, and the person I'm living with turned on the vice presidential debate. And again, I pay very little attention to these things, because again, I like to believe that I subscribe to like natural law over everything else, like the law of nature. Man-made laws are, functional to some extent and important to some extent, but politics, I'm going to limit my intake of anything related to politics. But I was watching it, and I was just like, I was watching Pence talk with Kamala, and just like the psychic energy that they were giving off. I was looking at them and I was like, this is how you keep people under this mind control. Like, it's emitted through the TV. It's literally transmitted through the TV. And I was like, no wonder I stopped watching this stuff. I got a little headache, actually. I was like, done, like so done with this. Yeah, and I choose to be informed in different ways that are much more empowering. For instance, around female reproductive health and female reproductive sovereignty. Considering who we've got now in Supreme Court, how important it is to know, what plants, serve our highest interest. For instance, these are the kinds of things that I prefer to dedicate my time to learning. And I think being informed is another key component to maintaining sovereignty. And if all you're doing is being informed by a system that is, like what you said, set out to just create little consumer units, you're not going to maintain sovereignty as well, probably, as you know, the person who's taking that alternative path. So
Um, thank you for speaking to the piece about the female body. um, like I know for myself, such a long time ago, I went to Planned Parenthood pretty early on. I was, sexually active at a young age. And
mm-hmm.
every time I went on a birth control pill, there was some like horrible side effect. There was some sort of like, almost having to like pay the devil to have
Yeah.
this thing. And my body just every time was no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was like, well, how am I going to, you know, claim my fertility for myself? And how am I going to, make sure that I don't get pregnant and all of that? And it took me a while to find the systems that worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And to claim my own the sovereignty over my fertility, because even
Mm-hmm.
the pill, much as that's like an empowerment piece and
Mm-hmm.
helpful for a lot of women, that that unfortunately was not the case for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important that we do remember that the wise women in the village, in
Mm-hmm.
the villages of even just a few hundred years ago, and even a couple hundred years ago, probably even 100 years ago, were helping women navigate their fertility. We're helping women get pregnant, or not allow a pregnancy to actually come to fruition if need
Mm-hmm.
be, and also helping them to give birth when
Mm-hmm.
when that was the right way to go. So
Yeah, using natural methods.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Knowing
And
the
highly effective natural methods. Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and like healthy, they're good for your body to take to take control in those ways and use those tools and that ancient wisdom. And
Mm-hmm.
so many people are cut off from that
Yeah.
too.
And that's, for me, it's really sad. It's actually, and one of the things I love about sharing online like this is that there could be, a woman in who knows where with, who's entirely uninformed about this. And she could be sitting here and watching this and be like, oh, like, I didn't even know that was an option. We can reach each other so with so much more breadth now, and it's amazing. I have a similar background with birth control and my sexuality and stuff, and I've been off of birth control again for over a decade. Would never, won't go back. Like, no need. There's no need. We're, if you just pay attention to your cycle as a woman, I mean, there's an app that I use called Flow, FLO, which tells me when I'm ovulating, for instance. So I know that this is like, time to be extra careful. And, you know, outside of that window is still a time to be careful, but a little less, a little less risky. So if you have any tips that you'd like to share, or if you have a favorite book that a book resource or something that maybe people could pick up, because I know you love books as much as I do.
Fertility awareness method, like charting and tracking, not just where you are in your cycle and knowing where the fertile days are, but also checking your cervical mucus, paying attention to the kinds of changes that are happening in your body. All of that is how I managed to get through my fertile years without having, without getting pregnant or having children, because I chose not to. And I was married, and we had considered for a while maybe having children, but ultimately I kept putting it off. And then I was like, why do I keep putting off something I think I want? And then I was like, oh, I don't really want that, do I? Like, it was part of the indoctrination, like, oh, you're supposed to have children, you're a woman. And then I realized, like, actually, no, I don't really want this. It's not for me, and that's okay. But
Mm.
I was able to avoid having children because I did fertility awareness method, and because I paid
Mm.
attention to my body, and because I was, you know, took a lot of precautions during the times when I knew I was fertile.
Mhm.
And then that whole thing also led me to more awareness through perimenopause and into menopause about
Mm.
what's going on in my body and what does it need, how do I listen to it, like what's it trying to show me. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was beautiful process, really interesting process too.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, I haven't hit those perimenopausal phase, but just paying attention to what I do pay attention to is it is really fascinating how complex the body is and how it gives us signs of what we like, what we need, when a good time or a bad time for one thing or another is. And one of the things that is most important to me when I don't know what I want or I don't know my answer or whether I have a clear yes or no on something is taking time and space to figuring it out. You know, I was
Even just sometimes asking the body, like legit, just like one of my favorite places to do that is in the tub, and other places in
mm,
meditation, but just to be like, what do you want? Like
mm,
what is it that I want right now? What do you need? And just asking different parts of my body. um,
mm.
and it's amazing how clear the message comes through when I just really take that time to honor it and ask. I mean, isn't it really amazing?
Yeah, no, it is really amazing. And I feel like practices like this open up the channel for your body to speak to you more. So that even when you're not in the bathtub, say you're out and about doing whatever, picking up groceries or something, and you're looking at a food item and you're like, does my body want this? Maybe like my mind is programmed to pick it up, but like intuitively, am I feeling like I'm gonna want to eat, this um this flavor of protein bar, let's say, to make it really simple and a little light. Um, and just feeling into it, yes or no, instead of doing things on on an autopilot, which I think so many of us do. Just like really feeling it and allowing ourselves the diversity of experiences through our emotional intelligence so that we are really in tune and like in alignment with our yes and our no and our needs and our wants, right? And that also goes like for me as a woman who, and I'm sure for you as well, when it comes to doing business or collaborating with people, feeling into what makes the most sense, like, and what you feel a strong yes to instead of, just jumping into anything with anyone. I mean, doing so is the beginning of a process often of learning about who you are, but you get to a point where it's like, okay, does this actually make sense? Is there alignment here? Is this what I want? Or am I just doing it because I think it's what I need to do? Um, and
Or
finding the
yeah, I was gonna say, or even like at times maybe feeling flattered, and kind of like, the ego's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, or I want to do that. But then if you really sit with it and you're like, how does it feel in my body? Your body will usually give you a better answer about like, yes, or I don't know about this.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think having those rituals, like you said earlier, like bathtub rituals or just sitting in meditation, sometimes I just sit silently in my room. I'll light a candle on my altar space. I have, my divination tools and crystals and, certain imagery, deities, etc. And I'll just sit with that candle lit and just anchor into that and remember, the life that I'm designing and the intention behind everything that I do. And I feel like these kinds of rituals really allow us to cultivate that voice on a daily basis outside of ritual. They make life a ritual almost, right? In the essence, but life is still life and we're still moving through life and we want to do it in a more and more ritualistic manner. And I believe that these practices really allow for that channel to open up so that we can more clearly and comfortably and easily navigate um, yeah, all of our options. All of our options. Yeah.
well, the body is the vehicle for enlightenment. It is the temple.
Mm,
So we go to it first for information. Um,
mm,
Even though information can come outside of us in some way, and especially through rich conversations like this, or even
mhm,
especially for me, like through time and nature, the natural world, like
mm,
those things are going to reach out to us, in, if we're present and aware, and if we're,
mm.
connecting. I think we're going to get the messages and the answers and the insights that we most need, and at the right time.
It's interesting that you said, what did you say? You reminded me of something. Something you just said reminded me of a teaching from my Hatha yoga teacher, Mark Whitwell. He wrote a book, God and Sex. Um, it takes me back to, oh, you said our body is the vessel of enlightenment, which I 100% resonate with, just 5 million% resonate with, right? Which is why I think I got into yoga and into Tantra so quickly and so early. I was raised Catholic, and there's a lot of shame and guilt and sin associated with the body, especially in Puritan Christian religions, especially with the female body, and for since long ago. And I know that we talk a lot about uh, witchery, witchcraft, and that the turmoil that we women and our feminine ancestors experienced around accessing our liberation as a result of these puritanical religious ideals and systems and propagators. But I have to say, I am so grateful that we have the sovereignty that we do have today, and the freedoms that we do have today, with all of this talk, with all of this confusion around what it means to be American, and with all the fights that women have gone through to gain such liberties. I do also want to recognize, first of all, I want to honor those people who have put in that hard work and put in and made those sacrifices and fought the good fight. And I want to recognize how fortunate we are that we have access, and we can do this, and we are safe to do it, even though sometimes we feel unsafe. And yes, a lot of people don't have a safe place to practice these things. They don't have safe home environment to access their intuition, and there is still a lot of debate around the female body, unfortunately, even in this country. In our we do have the authority and the option of seeking that safety, of seeking something different, and creating that change in our life. And I want to take a moment to say that I'm super grateful that I've been allowed to do that. I want to say thank you to like my mother and my grandmother who raised me to be a strong woman. Even as wild as I was and as devout Catholic as my grandma is, she still loves me. And I just want to like sit in gratitude with that we can access that enlightenment through our body. We can do that today, and we do have that opportunity and that privilege, because of our ancestors and because of those allies that we have in the here and now. Our allies. Yeah. So.
If since we just came through the time of Samhain, which is the time when we honor our dead and
Mm,
our ancestors, we can just sort of, through our DNA. I like to go into the DNA, like if we're going to go inward, that's
mm,
where you access your ancestors through
mm,
your DNA. But
mm,
they just go back through the lineage, and in most cases we're here because of their love, and we're here because of their sacrifices,
mm,
and we're here because of all of those generations that came before us, and then that really blesses us. um, I was a women's studies major. I co-majored in that and religion, so religion and women's studies. And now I think it's probably gender studies, but the women's studies stuff, just understanding so much more this multidisciplinary aspect of like
mm,
what women have had to overcome, um, and the history of it, the psychology of it, the sociology of it, the literature, like just looking at it from all these different points of view and seeing the intersectionality of different themes, and just the fight that women had to go through to
Yeah.
give us the sovereignty that we have today. And
Yeah.
still we're fighting for it. We still are.
Still,
There's still
still, yeah, still. Here's another thing I want to touch on. Yes, we are still fighting for it still. And some of us have reached a point of great security and are still in the mindset of fighting and winning and taking. And unfortunately, what can happen is a muddling of the mind and a muddling of the character and the priorities through that fight. A lot of it is around economics, right? Having economic sovereignty and economic freedom as a woman is something that is not easy to come by. Even still today, it's getting easier, thankfully. But doing so and not being harassed in the workplace or objectified, right? So there are many layers and there are many subtleties and nuances to all of this. But one thing that I do want to remind us as women is that we can return to our feminine wisdom. We can reach a certain level of security and then say enough, and it is time to return to the collective feminine wisdom, to not subscribe to the notions of greed and sheer capitalism for the sake of having, because
that that
because
is
we've
such a
gotten here
key
together, right?
aspect.
So it's a web. We have
Yeah,
to remember and honor the web of humanity that we create and share and are a part of. Yeah.
this key aspect to understanding, like what feminism is like a reclamation of feminine energy per se,
Mm-hmm.
in the world of yin yang, masculine, feminine, the all that is one becomes two. When we look at what feminism is around, like a woman's experience of being in the world, a woman's experience of being in a feminine body, then we come to understand more deeply that connection between our bodies and the earth. We think of the earth as Mother Earth, as Gaia. It's feminized. It's where we
Mm-hmm.
come from. It's
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't be here without it. So living sustainably, taking ownership over our financial, sort of security and having what we need, but also understanding that there's that connection where it's got to be sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
and that we do everything in a healthy way. We don't overconsume. We have respect for what we consume. We consume it with awareness, and then
Mm-hmm.
knowing that what we consume in our body can make
Mm-hmm.
us sick or healthy. There's not a lot of neutral area. It's kind of like one or the other. But then that is also reflected in the earth, how the earth and the ecosystem and the environment, thrive or not, because it's been in a sort of masculine take and control and do, as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to, being more receptive,
Mm-hmm.
drawing in, um, listening, taking only that which is needed and no more. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because really, if we're in a feminine body, we're a vessel of, receptacle, receiving. So like, once you pour the right amount of energy or money or whatever it is in, there's only so much more that can, I mean, like after a while it flows over, right? You
Yeah.
can't hold it.
Yeah.
You can't contain and hold that. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that you spoke to that. And like I just think it's so amazing how our bodies are reflections of what's happening with the earth and vice versa, and if we
Mm-hmm.
take care of both at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. um, well, are there any last bits you want to touch on?
Yeah, actually, we haven't spoken about relationships.
Mm. No. One of my favorite topics.
Well, I mean, right? Because I know that that is a lot of what you teach, what you work with and
Mhm.
do, and I also know your passion and commitment to this because you're always studying, you're always learning, you're and
Yeah.
you know, and creating and writing about all of these things.
I am, aren't I? Oh my gosh. It's become my life.
Well, I mean, it has, and your life is your work, and your work is your life, and that's part of your legacy. And
Yeah,
it's beautiful, and I love the way that like I love your writing on Medium, and I love what you
thank
share.
you.
I love the way you walk your path with integrity.
Thank you.
And to me, the key to sovereignty within relationships of any kind, not just like partnerships, like, you know, romantic partnerships, but the key to
Mhm.
relationships is integrity. And
Mhm.
integrity starts with yourself. Again, like it always comes back to us. Um,
Mhm.
so when I was really navigating how I wanted to be in relationships and I started completely letting go of all those constructs because I realized several years ago I was still in the constructs and
Mhm.
I like and twin flame and the one and I gotta have or whatever and then I
Mhm.
realized like wait a minute that that's a really not working for me. Okay, and B, like maybe that's not meant for me or that's not my path. And I was
I
like,
love
wait,
how honest you are. You're like, that's not working for me.
it wasn't. But you know, if I was gonna buy into all that, and I was definitely had bought in, and if I was gonna pin my life and my hopes, my dreams on that, then I was waiting around for something that might never happen, but also
Yeah.
like trying to fit a partner into this mold of is this the one and can we do it and you know, but I was putting my life on hold
Mm.
and that's
Yeah.
not being in my integrity
Mm.
and it wasn't getting me to where I wanted to be or fulfillment or happiness. So when I just deleted kind of all of that programming and I started walking a different path,
Mhm.
um, you know, I was coming into my own understandings of
Mm.
what makes me happy and what do I want and you know going for my dreams and building my dream life and
Mhm.
realizing like anyway and I knew this but in a deeper level appreciation for my life and what I have and what I've created on my
Mhm.
own
Mhm.
that maybe that person will come maybe they won't but I have to be in my own integrity and do the work myself around it all
Mhm.
and that includes energetic integrity.
Oh
It
yeah.
includes sexual integrity.
Mhm.
It's how you communicate. It's how we walk our
Well,
path in a
they
dedicated
all
way.
they're all connected, right? You can't have one without the other. And if I may, just what that's bringing up is, yeah, we're all, you know, we've all been born into this world where, I mean, at least as Americans, for the most part, the thing that was sold to us or portrayed to us was, you know, get the degree, get the career, get the white, you know, find the husband or the wife, or get married and have the white picket fence, and then propagate and, you know, procreate. Um, the first marriage is within. It's a unification of the masculine and feminine, or the receptive and the assertive, or the sun moon energies. Don't have to use gendered terminology here at all whatsoever. There are so many options. Um, the process of doing that requires a purification of the energy fields in order to ascend, and in order to reach that level of sovereignty where you are fully committed to your choice in life, right? Your direction in life. As a sovereign being, we choose a direction that fuels our soul, that that ignites passion or fervor or determination from a heart mind integration place, right? Once we're committed to this, and we reach these levels where our actions and our desires are matching. So when we're talking about integrity, the desire, the calling in, the magnetism of the feminine or the receptive is just as powerful and complementary to the action we put out in the world, because this is how we manifest, right? We put out, we receive. We put out, we receive. and what we're putting out is what we receive, right? What you give is what you get. Um, if you want to find yourself in a, I think, in a twin flame relationship, or in a soulful, empowered, sexy relationship, you have to be all of that for yourself first. So you have to get through all your wounding, your resentment, your sadness, your insecurities. You have to get through all of that. You have to get through all of that by doing the work, by doing that deeper level, subtle level work, which is actually what I'll be taking people through in my course starting in January. So we'll be going through all that work. We're going through each chakra. We're going through tons of breath work. We're going through sexuality. We're going through psychology and archetypes. We're going to play with it all, and we're going to interact with it all. And it's a 10-week journey intent on purification and remapping, re-blueprinting ourselves, or like seeing ourselves more clearly, to really prepare yourself for calling in what it is you really want. And oftentimes, I mean, for me, I mean, I've recently found myself in a relationship that is far different and astounding. You know, it astounds me. I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. You know, every day, and it required a surrender to who I truly am, and what I'm choosing in this lifetime, and a deep sort of cherishing and reevaluation of who I am, and what I value in others. And to get there, I had to really be in touch with my heart center, with my intuitive center, with my, you know, with my soul, with my love, and learn how to integrate that. You know, how does it all connect and stay connected? So
I definitely had to show up for myself in my masculine, um, because I realized that in some ways I was, and in some ways I wasn't. Um, and when I decided to take a real sort of determined approach to that inner marriage, which I call the sacred marriage within, and I started having a real conversation, like like I would with anybody, and I spoke to my masculine, and I realized I didn't appreciate him. I had some words around men and the masculine that I kept using over and over again. And frankly, like I was just kind of fed up with men and relationships and the whole thing. So I had this negative sort of it almost was like a mantra. And I kept being like, why are they such dumbasses?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my gosh, like that's my narrative. And not only is
Yeah.
that my narrative, but it was also like that's what I'm saying to myself
Yeah.
and to him. And we
And
can't do
that's what you're putting out, and so that's what you're getting back, right?
that. So
Yeah.
I love that you're going to be teaching that. I think it's going to be beautiful and powerful, and yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for opening up about relationships. I'm like, let's talk about everything else that's going on.
We got like all day.
Seriously, I mean, we could do a 24-hour live. That would be ultimate.
Easily.
Well, yeah, and I'm doing early bird on this. I'm doing early bird prices on this course through November. So just want to put that out there for anyone who's listening or watching, that you can go to my site. You can save over $200 on this course. It's 10 weeks. It's already priced really amazingly well. I want to make it accessible to people. Having things accessible is really important to me. Just having a background in social justice, I try to, you know, price things as fairly as possible. And of course, I'm open to discussing various needs, payment plans, etc. And Lisa, thank you so much.
I just love hanging out with you so
I
much.
love hanging out with you too.
and like now we just hung out with each other, but like in front of everybody.
So. I know. We've been doing this for months, but you know, I guess it was time to share.
For sure. We're so in alignment on so many things, and you're so wise and beautiful. And effervescent and inspiring.
You're so sweet. Don't, you're gonna make me cry. I respect and appreciate you so much and see so much of the same in you. So thank you. That means a lot. Hmm. Sending love.
Thanks
Thank
to
you to
everybody.
everyone. Yeah, thank you to everyone for watching. You can contact either of us if you have questions. I'm sure we'll do this again soon.
We should totally do that.
All right, I took us off of our live. Thank you so much. I love you. I appreciate
Well,
you.
I honestly could just keep riffing with you like forever.
Well, we should. Let's create more talks. Um, I'm super up for it, and we could get even more specific, into all the crunchy bits, and yeah, I'm up for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to teach this course with a friend of mine. We co-taught the Sacred Marriage Within, that went through all the chakras and like the shadow parts of the masculine and feminine traits on both sides,
Mm.
going through the chakra system. And we would have a sacred marriage ceremony at the end where we could,
Wow.
intermarry the two.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sacred
Yeah.
marriage ceremony. I like
Yeah.
that. I like
So that
that.
we could claim our sovereignty and have that marriage, within us be really good.
Wow. Maybe we can offer that as like a bonus to the course that I'm creating. Like maybe you can come in at the end and we can do like a sacred marriage ceremony. I haven't
Yes,
done it
I,
before,
I'm
so
sure
you
I
could
could
lead
dig
it.
it up. It's really amazing.
That
That
would be so
ceremony. It's
cool. And
powerful.
maybe, yeah, we could like, I don't know, we could do that. Well, no, just for this course. I was thinking we could do it like for everybody, but I'm thinking, no, this could be like a special gift for this course, or like a special, yeah, little bonus at the end. I would love that.
That would be actually really kick ass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's schedule a talk again soon, yeah?
Yeah. Sometime in the next like week or two, I've got some time, and I love the way my schedule's been rolling because I leave time and
Yeah.
then the right things fill it in and it just rolls. So a lot of
Okay.
feminine wisdom flowing through that way.
Okay, awesome. I have let's see. I'm scheduling something for early December. No, late December. Is it late December? Yeah. And then I've got something on the 16th, 14th. Yeah, I have a talk on the 14th and something yeah. So I would say maybe in 2 weeks. Would you be up for doing something
Yeah,
in
I was
2 weeks?
thinking like sometime the week of the 16th.
Okay. Yeah. Um okay, I've got a talk on the 18th. How about the 20th, Friday? That would work?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So same time? You want to
Yeah.
do 3 p.m. your time?
Yep.
Okay. Do we know what we want to talk about?
Um, we will by then.
You want to talk about like this, like Shiva Shakti unification, like sacred marriage type of stuff, or
We could start getting into that. We could even just talk about sort of day-to-day tools to navigate like just regular everyday stuff that are like key things that might be more fundamental stuff even.
okay. So the fundamentals of relating, the fundamentals of yeah, what about the fundamentals of relating, like starting with having a healthy relationship with yourself, like tools for doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it'll still always sovereignty will always tie into all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you calling
Okay.
your course, by the way?
Ecstatic, erotic, embodied. Does that feel good?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, that's the
totally
babe.
does. I love
Good.
alliteration.
I do too. It's one of my favorites.
This was way fun. I'll be curious to see what kind of kind of interest is generated and how people respond.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of comments and likes and had quite a few people popping in and out. So um, I'm scheduling our next one. And yeah, we can check in and see like what people have said in the comments exactly. I saw someone said hi and I said hello back to them. I think they were your friend. I was like, hello.
Yeah, I'm not like, I'm so not good if I'm doing a Facebook Live at being like, who's on and saying hi and all that. And also because I don't want to like veer off topic too much. So you did beautifully. Beautifully. Okay. Aw, bye. Mhm. Mm. Okay. Okay, absolutely. Well, I love you and I'll talk to you soon. And yeah, if you have any other kind of ideas or insights about what you want to do, like something else might come through or like, oh, we should talk about that. So I look forward to it regardless. Okay. All right. Bye.